Welcome to this week's All right, I know we've been missing for a couple of weeks. I was out of town for a thing. I can't really talk about it. It's all very hush hush. Anyway, in this episode, which the guys did while I was otherwise engaged, they discuss comedians. So let's have a listen together, and I'll pretend it's my first time hearing it, and you can pretend that it's just as good without me. So let's get to it. This is The Men Are Talking.
Good evening and welcome to The Men Are Talking. This week, our grand poobah, the great Gazoo Larry, is on assignment in another city. That's what the official story is, at least. And we have a couple of others that are regulars that aren't here. Dave can't be here. He's tied to a bed somewhere. And Ferg apparently isn't feeling very well. We don't think it's because he's drunk. Well, at least that's not what we're going to say. So tonight what we've got is me, Paul, hello, and
this is Bill coming to you from my back porch.
And surprisingly alive is
the Unknown Podcaster.
That's UPC. Right, UPC, fantastic. And tonight our topic is comedians, and that's comedians across the board, influential ones, some of our favorites. Some people that are different, unique, whatever the case may be. But what we want to talk about tonight is comedians. And we were going to do sort of rock, paper, scissors to see who went first. But since you can't see what that is, you, our wonderful listeners, I guess I'm just going to have to randomly pick someone to go first. Unless someone all Horshack-like raises their hand. Oh, wait, okay.
Mr. Carter.
See, I just think UPC is saying that, but Bill really means it in earnest. So I'm going to cut to Bill. William.
Yes.
Who do you think? We'll start with influential. Now, this doesn't have to be your fave, but influential comedians.
So I know many of you think that we just show up, sit down, and talk about stuff off the top of our heads.
Oh no.
I actually
That's what I do.
every week come out here. Well, your head's so big.
That's what she said.
It's comedian night.
But
yeah, I come out here every week and empty the trash and wipe down the tables and get everything set up, and then I try to actually do some research. And one of my favorite, I'm really excited about this week's topic because if I could do any job, and I tried it once and failed miserably, would be stand-up comedian. I love stand-up comedy. It's just, there's just so many good ones. And so I made it a point to do, like all day today. Usually when I'm in my truck anyway, I am listening to stand-up comedy on XM radio.
Sure.
But I made it a point to pretty much all day today listen to stand-up comedy and read some articles about them. And one of the articles, or a couple of the articles that I read about influential comedians, and I'm going to give two.
Nice.
Because one, I know almost absolutely nothing about, but on two different lists, not lisps, two different lists, he was listed as the #1 most influential comedian ever. And his name is Bill Hicks.
However, it is not the Bill Hicks most people might know.
Is his last name Hicks?
Is there more than one
Maybe
Bill
I'm
Hicks?
wrong. Maybe I'm confusing the names. But there is a comedian
on the Jeff Foxworthy tour, Bill Engvall.
His name's not Hicks?
No, that's
Did
Bill.
I just call Bill Engvall a Hick?
Here's
No.
your son.
Oh,
The
good
Jeff
Lord. I'm
Foxworthy
sorry,
tour
Bill. I
was
love
all a
you. You're
bunch of
fantastic.
Hicks.
Well,
Yeah, he
maybe
was a
that's the
Hick.
problem.
They were all Hicks.
I'm so
But
sorry, Bill.
UPC, have you heard of Bill Hicks?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Overrated as fuck, just like the Beatles.
Well,
I agree. I listened to a few of his samples that I could find.
He only has one actual full
Yeah, well,
show.
he died at age 32 from pancreatic cancer after trying every drug in the world.
Wow.
And but he was influential, and the way that this writer of this article explained influential was based on things that he could cite how he influenced future comedians, such as, say, Chris Rock. I honestly don't remember who the ones were that he said I think one of them might have been Lenny Bruce. But
even though Lenny Bruce predated.
no,
Bill
so
Hicks.
then I'm wrong. Then I'm wrong on that. I can't. And I don't want to pull it up right now. But
Oh, we're all glad about that. But go ahead.
there were. I said pull it up, not out.
Oh, sorry.
It's already out.
Sorry. But
There were two comedians on his list of influential comedians that he did an addendum and said, I removed Jim Carrey from my list because I couldn't find anybody that he actually influenced in his stand-up.
Interesting.
And then there was another one that he got rid of and replaced with someone. I read the final list. But Bill Hicks, his point was, is very satirical, very dark comedy, social type. Not my... I'm not a fan. I wouldn't have gotten into it. But I thought it was worth a mention simply because several of the articles that I read, gave this guy a lot of credit
Sure.
for the people that he influenced down the road, people that I would actually end up liking. The other one that I would say, and this portion of the broadcast is brought to you by the Pensacola Sanger Theater summer movie series that starts this Saturday, is a guy that you may have heard of by the name of Steve Martin. And he's one of my favorites as well, but as far as influence...
En route de fromage?
Well, yeah. Take a tennis shoe, stuff it with cheese, and shove it down your throat.
He hates these cans.
Yeah. Not and we're kind of focusing on stand-up, but we're also going to diverge into film. And, the films that he's done with Father of the Bride and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Roxanne, and my all-time favorite comedy movie ever, The Jerk. That's what's being played at the Sanger Theater for $5.
Wow.
This Saturday. Get your tickets. And, but he, in the 70s, was, as a comedian, was selling out stadiums. Not theaters, stadiums.
He was a big deal.
And he was the king of ending a joke earlier than it needed to be ended. In other words...
Unlike Norm Macdonald.
In fact, I think Norm Macdonald's about to finish another joke.
Yeah, God is ready to go. I'm sending you back.
Look, Norm.
Listen. Yeah, I get it. The light was on.
Rest in peace, fella.
Pride. But Steve Martin with it, the wild and crazy guy. And then one other thing that he did, as far as stand-up wise, was he walked away at the height of his success. And of course he went into, the Three Amigos, him and Martin Short over the years, all that they've done.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Oh, Rupert,
May I use the bathroom?
Yes, thank you.
Good
But
Lord.
those would be the two, one that's obscure to me, the other one that played a large influence in my life. Quick story. On the King Tut album,
Sure.
I had a friend, Mark.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, There is a
Funky
King Tut
Tut.
song, but there is also a King Tut album.
Wasn't that
Well,
the
it's
name
not.
of the
It's
album,
not.
or was
No,
it
it's
Wild
not
and
the name of
Crazy
the
Guy?
album.
No,
No,
it
no. I actually
I'm sorry.
own this. I own
Oh,
this album,
all
and
right.
I do not remember the title of the actual album. But it is not King Tut.
But there's
But
more
the
than
song
one.
King
But
Tut
it
is
includes
on,
the
yeah.
song.
Okay, but there's
Yeah.
not more. I thought he did multiple tunes. Am I wrong?
Well,
Yes, he's
yeah,
done more.
not only that,
He's a banjo virtuoso.
He is very good.
For those of
Juggled,
you
he
who
played
give a fuck about
harmonica,
banjos.
Guatemalan cat juggling. In
Right.
his
Oh, God.
act, he took that from his act into the movie The Jerk. When the priest shows up at his mansion and shows him the video, turn it off.
Now, is it The Jerk or is it another one where he gets pulled over and they make him whistle Dixie while he's hopping on one foot and juggling? There's a movie where he's
I don't know
doing
that
that.
one.
It's like, what's the road test? It's can you juggle and hop on
I
one
don't
foot?
I don't know. But
there you
anyway, my friend Mark Clark was my best friend in high school.
Not the World War II general.
No,
No.
not him.
This was Private Mark Clark.
Bill was alive
And,
then, but that's not the
yeah.
joke. Yeah.
But we used to listen to this album on LP. I mean, on
Sure.
record,
Long
vinyl.
playing record.
Yeah.
33
LP,
and a third
long play,
RPM.
33 and a third RPMs.
But-
it was funny at 45 as well.
Let's-
Well,
Let's-
it just sounded like the
Now
Chipmunks.
it may have been. Well, I think that was earlier, but "Let's Get Small" was a really big comedic record for him, and that
Let's Get Small was really big.
Leave it to
was.
Paul to bring up the small shit.
So anyway, Mark had his bedroom in the basement, and there's a very small clip in that routine where one he says, enough comedy jokes, which I just think is perfect.
As opposed to the other ones.
But then as he's standing there, and I think it's after he's explained how much of his budget goes to rubber chickens and arrows and
Yeah.
0.0001% to new material, stuff like that. And then he just pauses, and I knew it was coming, and Mark's parents went to my dad's church, and I would hit the volume on the record player, and Steve Martin would just go, "Oh shit." And then I would get to hear Mark's mom yell from upstairs because we had a record on where somebody was cursing, and it just made me happy every time I did it. So those would be the two influencers
That's fantastic.
that I would
That's excellent.
mention to start the show off with.
Absolutely. Now I'm looking around the room for someone other than Bill, and it did. Well, I think we're gonna have to go with UPC.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a bit more historic on this topic. I think
And that,
Groucho
you mean not like
Marx.
not like a insignificant
Oh, I mean-
character like Steve Martin.
I mean, the greatest comedy, greatest comedy novel ever written was the Bible. But
Wow.
Yeah, there
no,
goes.
I'm gonna go Groucho Marx. I think Groucho Marx he bridges the gap between. Of course, he was part of the vaudeville scene, but he bridges the gap to more contemporaneous comedy.
Sure.
Where he is a significant
You
influence.
mean contemporary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't-
Was I not specific enough?
No, after you said vaudeville, I had to somehow correct something you were going to say. Sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
But I think Groucho Marx is very, very key in bridging the gap between
Huge.
the old-timey comedy and then influencing stand-up comedians and obviously, I mean, Woody Allen, who's one of my nearest and dearest comedians, definitely owes, and he admits this, owes
sure.
a huge debt of gratitude to Groucho Marx. In fact, he will use Groucho Marx jokes and credit them to Groucho because they're timeless. Some of them,
Well, agreed.
you know.
Agreed.
So you got Groucho Marx. Now, if you want to get into like fringe comedy, you've got why am I blanking on the name?
People that wear fezzes.
No.
Oh, not okay.
Oh my God.
Start with an L.
Bill just mentioned him. He 60s, arrested multiple times.
Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce.
There you go.
Lenny Bruce is super influential to
He's
the
the
more
envelope
fringe
pusher.
comedy, alternative comedy, the more esoteric stuff, which I gravitate towards, but which is ironic that I can't remember his goddamn name. But
Blue.
I've been drinking all.
Sure. Well, yeah. Look, you're a little drunk. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we can all get small.
And by the way, Let's Get Small was the name of the album in '77.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So we got Groucho, Lenny Bruce, and I don't know. I kind of want to go with.
Yeah.
It seems relatively recent, at least as far as our age cohort.
Sure.
It's Jerry Seinfeld, the observational comedy.
100%.
What's the deal?
What's
the deal with these
deal
microphones
with
in front of me? You can't hear me right now? Why do I have a microphone? Anyway,
But you're
there's
totally right.
There's all kinds of mockery associated with the old, like, 80s Seinfeld stand-up stuff before the TV show. But I would... Dollars to Donuts, Jerry Seinfeld is highly influential in the world of comedy.
Tremendous.
Because he brought in the simple observational comedy.
Agreed.
And the other thing is, he showed at a time when particularly stand-up comedians were becoming more and more blue and a little, like,
Yep.
you know, a lot of F-bombs and things like that.
Sure.
His policy was, nope, this is going to be totally clean. And his philosophy was, if you can't be funny without using a curse word, then you're not funny.
I agree.
And I'm talking like he's dead, but he's
No.
not.
He's
But,
not. But yeah.
I think he's very influential, and he put a breath
He's
of
actually
fresh
having
air.
a bit of a comeback.
Well, he had a breath of fresh air to this trend in the mid '80s where it started getting really, really
Yeah.
coarse and crude. You know, the Andrew Dice Clay and all that kind of stuff. I think Jerry Seinfeld brought it back to a simplicity
Agreed.
of comic
Right. And it's just,
insight.
and you can't underestimate just, and we all probably have a friend or two like this where you just, yeah, maybe maybe they're funny. Like, for example, and I'm not trying to embarrass him. Well, of course I'm trying to embarrass him. But Bill's just kind of a funny guy. Not only is he just kind of a funny guy, he tells a great joke. And all of us maybe have a friend that is just somehow a little funny. Even in one of the Seinfeld episodes, George is upset because he's met a girl and she thinks he's really funny, but he doesn't want Jerry to hang around because Jerry's just funny all the time. And Jerry's like, I don't have to be funny. He said, am I being funny right now? And Lynn goes, yeah, kinda. You're just like, you're funny.
Yeah.
And so and that's a great thing. And yeah, so why not do that? In fact, and I know Bill Cosby is, you know, persona non grata. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we've gathered a large audience of frogs tonight, and they're really enjoying the show. So I apologize.
It's been raining for pretty much 5 days.
You know what?
And Cosby,
You know what? Ticketmaster has fucked it up again.
there you go. And Cosby really
They
never.
sold tickets to frogs.
There you go. And Cosby really never swore. And to point out how he never swore, he had one bit where he talks about people doing drugs, and then he doesn't get it. But people would get high or they do cocaine, and he says, you know, I asked my friend, well, why do you do cocaine? And he says, well, it intensifies your personality. And Cosby says, yes, but what if you're an asshole?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great line, and it's even better because he never swears.
Exactly.
And then he
So
says that, and the
swearing is
crowd,
for
right?
It's meaningful.
Right.
It's for effect.
Exactly. So not only is
If
the joke
every
spot
other word
on,
out of your mouth
Cor-
is
correctamundo. You're going nuclear in a way, and it's interesting. Yes, William.
My dad, as many of you have heard me mention before, after serving the Air Force and then selling insurance, became a preacher, 25 years. and he did not swear.
Right?
I'm not saying he never swore, but every now and then, maybe once a year, from the pulpit, he'd refer to somebody as a jackass. And he did it exactly what you're talking about. It was for effect. It got your attention. You're like, whoa, hey,
100%.
Pastor Bill.
100%.
Motherfucker.
No, and not to, and this
That
is
some bitch has something to say.
and this isn't and this isn't a political thing, but having I've had the privilege of being able to hear a couple of oral arguments at the Supreme Court, and depending on the justice, sometimes they ask lots of questions. They're very verbal. Very famously, Clarence Thomas is not.
Yes.
So if Clarence Thomas asks a question, and I was there when he asked one, the crowd has to be quiet. I mean, the think about, ladies and
I've been there
gentlemen.
once, yeah.
There you go. Think about, ladies and gentlemen, being in a church where there's something very serious. Maybe it's a funeral, maybe it's a whatever it is, and hush is the order of the day. It's like that all the time in the Supreme Court. And if you start to make a ruckus at all, you get invited by security to leave.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the punchline here.
Understood.
Where's the?
If you must talk, make it a whisper.
No,
If you
100%.
must whisper, make it a prayer.
There you go. And if you want to chew a piece of gum, unwrap it and chew it before you get into the court, because someone's going to look at you like, look, buddy, you're about to be out of here. But the point is with Clarence Thomas is, I've been there, and Clarence Thomas asked a question, and as soon as he started to talk, the entire crowd was, it was a hush. It was a, what just happened?
He's alive.
Because
All
he doesn't, well, right.
all over the world tonight.
Right, because it's just not something he does, and it's just one of those things, which of course then has a great effect, right? It's like, oh, because you don't have to like the guy, but I think he's an excellent writer. He's certainly a smart dude, and then with him not asking questions, well, then that means if he does ask the question, well, he cares about it. And maybe he's got a point, and that's kind of the whole dealio. I didn't mean to get
No, but the same thing.
But in terms of
Jim
comedians.
Gaffigan's the same way.
100%.
He rarely swears, and
I'm not
he
sure I've ever
does-
heard Brian
I-
Regan swear.
I have very, very recently.
Actually, Jerry Seinfeld has.
but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
There we go. Sorry, my bad.
So, Paul, who would be the influential comedians that you would like to discuss?
Well, there are a couple. I would like to ask one question in between, and what you were mentioning with Groucho Marx, and I think this is what you were getting at, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, even though you could be killed at any time. UPC. One of the things that I think is what you were getting at, but you
You
didn't.
can put words in my mouth as
You
long
did.
as you don't charge me for the meal.
So, but you didn't say it specifically. Is there's a change in mediums or venues, right? Going from live stage to film, it's different,
Yeah.
right? The present now, it's not that the funny isn't funny. It's that film isn't as big. You don't have to be as big. And to make that transition, and then to make a transition that then people emulate, that's a really big deal. Changing mediums, changing
Well,
venues.
I'm talking about Groucho. I was thinking, when I mentioned Groucho Marx, I was thinking like his post-Marx Brothers film era, where it was You Bet Your Life.
Sure.
And he was doing all these appearances on Dick Cavett and Tonight Show and things like that, where it was just him being off the cuff funny,
But
and maybe doing a little 2 minutes of a little stand-up bit or something, whatever.
Sure.
But back then, stand-up wasn't really a thing in the 50s and 60s, and so we can't compare apples and oranges.
agreed.
But
His spontaneity
his off the
too.
cuff, his linguistic
almost-
humor. It was very. It was the He was. I would put it this way: he is the most British American comedian we've
Very
ever
interesting.
had.
Very interesting.
It's almost like what he did on those types of appearances to shows is what you would refer to today as a comedian doing crowd work.
Okay.
Exactly.
He wasn't doing.
It's improv.
He wasn't doing. Yeah, improv, but not like, hey, give me a name of a place.
No, but
Yeah.
and then just to but it's you saying that though, right? So moving from vaudeville to movies, and then moving from movies to a game show, where you have to have that. It's the game show. There's certainly a little competition going on, but it's a talk show combination, and so
The game show wasn't really a game show. It wasn't like
Sure.
Jeopardy where you're there to
Sure.
win a bunch of money. The viewer attraction was Groucho.
Of course, no, 100%.
It wasn't really like somebody's gonna win $1 million today. It
But
was
to do right, but
it was like Liars Club in the '70s or
You got
Hollywood
one, you got one
Squares.
take in
You know,
a
Hollywood
movie.
Squares.
100%.
In a movie, cut
No, 100%.
scene 4.
There you go. Let's go. Yes.
12.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. And so now we're talking about 3 different venues, 3 different mediums, the stage, the screen, and then the small screen. And the
Yeah.
small screen is
TV.
basically a live kind of shoot kind of thing. And yes, so I'm just with you all the way. Is all I
But
want to say.
the nature of his humor, that was
100%.
the thing I was getting at, is his, I would say, not the vaudeville stuff, but the film stuff where he's got jokes and lines,
Mhm.
and then that transitions to the TV stuff, that kind of humor, the
Mhm.
type of humor, and it's almost like talking about music where I know what things sound like, but I'm not a musician.
Understood.
I know what comedy is like, and I love it, and I'm
Understood.
aficionado of it, but I'm not a comedian.
With you all the way. No, and that's
But
yeah.
the legacy of Groucho is 100% in today's stand-up
Agreed.
comedians.
And the difference to me with him, if you compare him to other people, like early in his career, I didn't think Letterman was that great, but he became a really great interviewer, and he was really good. Right, exactly. He was really good on the spot, and it's not that he didn't have some planned questions, that kind of thing, and all that. But the thing with Groucho is, I was mentioning, like, some guys, they're just funny, right? You got the really funny friend. Okay, but that just because you got the really funny friend doesn't mean they can be a stand-up. But Groucho
No.
was this combination of the really funny friend who could entertain, but then was really at the height of being a showman, and then he just make that a combination, and you're the best. It's just the way it is.
There's also a humility with Groucho.
You
He
agree.
didn't want to, like, bring the entire restaurant, for example, these anecdotes about him being in, he didn't want to, like, get all the people to stop eating and praise him and laugh at him. He wasn't a ham.
Right.
He
Agreed.
was just gonna, like, make the waiter laugh and the people at his table laugh.
Well, he was
And for the rest of the dinner, the rest of the dining experience, he didn't want anyone else to even know he was there.
Yeah,
I think.
no, I totally hear what you're saying, and then
Yeah.
just right. It was like even when he was on Dick Cavett, and he was amazing on Dick Cavett.
Yeah.
It was almost incidental. It's like, oh, we're just having a conversation, and then all of a sudden, it's some of the funniest stuff you've ever heard, or some of the great observational stuff you ever heard. It was excellent. So, did you have something, William?
Wait,
Well,
your
I was going to
influential ones?
say
Yes, I was going to do it, but I feel like Bill had
a
something
little
to
bit,
say.
just a little bit more technical towards the podcast.
Sure. The
If
frogs
you
want to know.
guys on our next podcast
Mhm.
could not have me mic each one of these tree frogs.
Well,
Number one, I don't know if you know how hard that is.
it really is. We have
No
some.
wonder our mic budget is through the roof. Who's miking all the frogs?
Our sound crew is impeccable.
They're obviously
When
union.
Even when they're high, they're impeccable.
And Paul has a key grip. I gotta tell you.
I don't even want to know about his best boy.
His name is Timmy.
But fantastic.
Help me with the bags. That's my roadie. I'm like, help me with the bags. He's like, certainly. You take the blonde, I'll take the one in the toy bin.
Oh, hello. That's fantastic.
Marty Feldman doing Groucho Marx.
Oh, my
Come
gosh.
on.
Marty
Exactly.
Feldman.
And that's the influence of Groucho
Yeah,
Marx.
yeah.
There you go. It's fantastic. For my
Bugs Bunny, by the way, Bugs Bunny
Bugs Bunny is Groucho Marx.
is
Yep.
entirely intended to be a cartoon Groucho Marx.
Oh, I know. I should have taken that left turn at
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
Certainly.
Absolutely. It's,
Yeah.
he just happens to have a carrot instead of a,
Yeah,
a
instead
cigar.
of a cigar. Yeah.
Right. It's a natural. There you go. Just go ahead.
That's the influence.
No,
That,
nobody's-
to me, I think I win the most influential comic.
Okay. All right. Well,
There's one. I want to hear yours.
that's okay. No, we'll consider it.
Because
That's
if you,
fine.
But
if you miss one, I'm going back.
We're already like
No,
20
so-
minutes into this motherfucker, and like Paul hasn't even done
So
Good
his.
thing
So-
there's only 3 of us.
Yeah.
we want to run long.
Yeah.
So my two, as far as influential people, and this has something to do with what I remember growing up, even though I wasn't allowed to hear some of it, but I got to hear some of it. Are the first one is George Carlin.
Thank you.
George Carlin is the first comedic album that I listened to is George Carlin, and then I heard an older one that he had, and then later in life, listening to some of the stuff that was even older, with him doing a newscast where he's not just
The
doing
hippie dippy news weather guy.
right, hippy dippy weatherman.
Yeah.
I'm Al Sleet, the hippy dippy weatherman, with all the hippy dippy weather, man. And Biff Barf chewing up the sports and spitting them back at you. So it was very just really not influential, really funny in all of the bits, and smart. That's part of it is the smart part, right? And Lenny Bruce was smart, but even though he was blue, but George Carlin, really feel like had this. The frogs loved George apparently. Just this infusion of let's talk about this, only instead of just saying, hey, you know what I mean, or even though I love the one-liners, him saying, consider this, right? Consider that this is a big deal, or even the sports scores where he'd say, in the Ivy League, Princeton 24, MIT 6 to the 4th power, things like that, right? Where you're like, all right, know something about MIT, or making reference to, historic figures and the atomic bomb and things like that. He was a really smart guy. Yes, sir. What do you have to say, EPC?
George Carlin, obviously he has there's a period, and I can't put my finger on what year it was, but
Sure.
he did that straight-laced Jack Parr Tonight Show kind of like wearing a suit, doing the, vanilla jokes, and then in the 60s he completely turned a card and became the George Carlin that most of us know,
Social
and
commentary.
really the best George Carlin.
And he grew his hair.
Stuff was weak, was bland, and whatever. Do you know what inspired him to helped him to make that transition?
I believe
What
it
comedian?
Was,
I would have. I mean,
Lenny Bruce.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
It makes
Lenny
perfect
Bruce.
sense. And then my second guy.
Before you get to your second guy,
Sure.
going back to George Carlin.
Let's do it.
You mentioned the first album you heard was George Carlin. Probably, if I can remember, the first one I heard was Steve Martin.
Okay.
And I didn't know that much about George Carlin. And I knew him from the 7 Things You Can't Say on Television.
Sure.
That was the first thing I remember about him. And you just, UPC, close one there. You
Oh,
just...
we almost touched tips.
Yeah. It was almost a travesty.
They're very nice.
It's fine.
Very impressive.
the hearing about George Carlin and knowing about him and seeing some of his stand up, and it was funny. It wasn't my style. And going back, in the last year or so, and seeing him in the black suit and the skinny black tie on Jack Parr,
Right.
I was like, this guy's fucking amazing. And you're calling it the lame ass vanilla
It
stuff.
really was. It was the
And
love
I'm
me.
like-
It was the if George Carlin and the Beatles, it was the Love Me Do era of the Beatles.
I guess, but it spoke to me more
But
than
after he had his Sgt. Pepper's period in the '60s, when he did all the college stuff with the hippy dippy
Yeah,
Weatherman
right,
and all
right.
that stuff, but George Carlin really got better and better until he died. His stuff in the '90s, his
Yes.
HBO
And
specials.
some of his stuff in the 90s I
Oh
did,
my
I will agree.
God,
but I
that
would
stuff
go
was
back
so
with that,
good.
back
It's impeccable.
to... I've heard his daughter talk about him on talk radio before. About, his influence on people. And always recognized him as a very intelligent comedian. For a comedian, very
He's
intelligent
a very
person.
bright dude.
Dude,
But it
if George
just
Carlin
wasn't-
had run for president, I would have voted for him.
Well,
It
now,
just
okay.
wasn't my style.
Just his awareness about all of the bullshit
But again,
in society and government, everything, like,
yeah,
it was brilliant.
yeah. But I respect it. Again, like the Beatles, I more than respect him. Look, Paul McCartney and the Wings, I think are better than the Beatles.
I agree with you.
I hope nobody
No, I
sends me
agree with
hate
you.
mail.
but that was a different show that we did.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Paul is getting a beer, and then he's going to come back with his second influencer. And
By the
I
way,
just
for those
wanna-
of you who don't have a camera, Paul gave us some nice plumber's butt while he was digging around in that beer fridge.
And I would just like to say to the frogs, well, excuse me.
That was excellent. Thank you for admitting that. Was very good. So the second guy that I really think, and it's interesting because him and Carlin were really good friends, is Richard Pryor.
George
George
Pryor.
Pryor.
Oh, that George Pryor.
Sorry, not George Carlin, Richard
George
Pryor.
Pryor.
No, and
Yeah.
because Richard Pryor was doing social commentary things, and then he was also doing some blues stuff, but he was just really able to zero in on things that rang true with people, and he would be talking about some things that had to do with race, and not just that.
Not cliched.
Correct. Not right. Exactly. Not just cliches about, even though, cliches start with at least an ounce of truth, but not just talking about the way that black people in America were getting short shrift, to say the least, but also the relationship between black people and white people and perceptions of each other and this sort of thing, and they rang true, and often what he did was pick on something that was a misunderstanding, right? That was a misconception or a misperception, and make a joke out of it, and he was outstanding at doing that, and he also, he didn't have a great upbringing, and I don't mean that just because he was poor. He had some troubles. He had some instances of being abused badly, but it was but that's the other guy, and one of my favorite little tributes, I guess you could say, to Richard Pryor was George Carlin had his second heart attack, and after the heart attack he did a comeback special on HBO, and he comes out, and of course the crowd goes wild, and he says, oh, it's really good to be back, and I'm sorry that I missed this time. He said, but here's the thing is, my good friend, and he's a great comedian, Richard Pryor, and everybody goes wild for saying Richard Pryor. So Richard, he had a heart attack, and I was just like, well, I mean, he can't just have the fun. So I went and had a heart attack. I said, well, then after that, Richard tried to blow himself up, and I said, well, screw that, I'm going to have another heart attack. which is so, but it's so perfect,
That's
and
a
I'm
great
sure.
homage, though. It's
Correct.
like so much respect for
Correct.
Pryor.
And I know I laughed my butt off, but I'm guessing maybe no one laughed their butt off more than Richard Pryor listening to that. So those and again, it's when I grew up, but it's in terms of influence. So many people took things from Carlin and Pryor. It's yeah. Yes, sir.
When that incident happened where Richard tried to blow himself up, my aunt worked at the National Bureau of Standards in Washington, D.C.
I can't wait for this.
And that's where you will find the official time clock, for like the United States or the world.
Oh,
the
wow.
official yardstick, the official
there's
meter,
more than one.
all of, but I'm saying,
Sure.
I only
The
know
U.S.
the
Naval
one.
Observatory is.
I understand that. I get that. But at the National Bureau of Standards is where they have all these measurements. They also do a lot of safety testing and things like that. And of course, when that happened, and it was related to crack or cocaine.
I think he was freebasing.
Yeah,
he was
freebasing,
freebasing cocaine.
And his publicist came out and said, he lit a Bic lighter and it blew up in his face. My aunt got called into work immediately, and they started testing Bic lighters. I mean, they were like, shut down what you're doing. We had a comedian blow himself up with a Bic lighter. We got to test all the Bic lighters.
I don't know. I'm guessing it was a little bit more, what's the word, substantial than a Bic lighter, but I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I'm just
But it's
saying.
a sad thing. It's a bummer.
Yeah. And
I
so
mean,
I
we've
rode
all
with
seen
her.
JoJo Dancer, have we not?
However,
Come on.
I rode with her to the National Bureau
The
of
story
Standards
is out.
Yes.
to see it in the back of a Ford Pinto.
Yeah.
And that's a true fucking story, Aunt Joyce.
And that's the truth.
Oh, you can't write that. That's a beautiful thing. And you got to the National Bureau of Standards, and they had a Bic lighter that was like 1 foot tall by 8 inches wide.
We backed into it with the Pinto and blew. He
Got
blew
blown
up good.
up.
He blew
Boom.
up real good.
In Vietnam.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
Yes, sir, EPC.
Okay, so I want to know what you guys have as Ewan's guys have as your favorite comedian.
Ooh.
Let's.
Will Young.
Bill.
What do you got?
I mean, there are so many, and there are generations.
Okay, how about this? Let's do two. Dead and alive.
I don't have any.
Okay,
dead
how about
ones.
how
You don't
about
have any, you don't like any
how about
dead comedians?
how about an
George,
addendum?
we just talked about George
How-
friggin' Carlin.
Okay, how about an addendum to that? How about older and newer?
older and
Well,
newer?
what is older, newer?
Well, could be dead, but it could be a
70s,
guy
80s,
whose heyday was.
90s, this last century, this century.
Active, inactive. How about that?
How about
Whether or not they're dead
no,
or alive.
No,
active
because
or
most
inactive.
of them are. I'm gonna go. Well,
Jeez.
you know what?
I
Fuck you
didn't
guys.
mean this to be such a... Oh my god.
I thought this was about comedy.
Yeah,
Look-
this is now about like
Look,
fucking pulling
Lenny,
teeth.
watch your language. Go ahead.
I feel like a dentist. I'm pulling
Go
teeth
for
here.
it.
What's going on?
Yeah. I'll be a dentist.
I'll be a dentist.
There,
I'll be a
when
success.
we're talking about stand-up
Steve Martin.
comedians,
Yes.
Steve Martin is not my all-time favorite stand-up comedian. Love his stuff, his movies more than his stand-up. It's really tough to nail
Sure.
it down
Yeah.
because Stephen Wright, he was one of my first influences. Heidi was out here interrupting before we got started. UPC actually said, Heidi, the men are talking. And I watched Heidi literally pee the bed laughing at Stephen Wright. And one of my favorite Stephen Wright jokes
I got to
is
see him live.
when they said, "Hey, if you could be any animal in the world, what would you be?" And he told his teacher, "I'd be a bird." And she said, "Why? So you could fly?" And he said, "No, so my shit would be white." And that's a great joke. But damn, Lost the Buttonhole is one of the funniest jokes ever written. He gave way to Mitch Hedberg. And so I love
point.
those guys. But my all-time favorite stand-up comedian, and 3 years ago, Paul and I got to go see him live. Brian Regan.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
From Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I believe, down that area originally. And he's one of those guys like Seinfeld who doesn't work blue at all.
Yeah.
He goes,
Exactly.
and every now and then he throws out a weird, a curse word. But man, it's like once every other album.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that was verbatim. That was
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what Brian
I wrote it
Regan
down.
says.
But
Bill's
no,
working on his impression routine.
his stand-up routines about just he just does this dumb guy impression, where you get off the elevator on the wrong floor and you're like, oh, yeah, boxing. There are many moosin'.
That's right.
Yeah.
By the way, if you don't get
What's
these
the plural of ox?
Oxen.
What's the plural of box?
Boxing.
Okay.
Jermaine, Tito Jackson.
I think we should have started this with, if anyone listening doesn't get these references, fuck all the way off. Go down a YouTube rabbit hole and figure this shit out.
Go watch.
Figure this shit out.
He's done one. He did one right after the Troubles, and live at Red Rocks. He did a Red Rocks one, and it's weird because he went into his house during COVID with brown hair and came out with white hair.
Yes.
It was like Moses on the mountain, But he does one of the funniest things I ever saw. He was doing a stand-up routine, and he does a stand-up routine about school spelling bee science fair, and the big yellow one's the sun. And he goes, this kid can't even zip his own pants, but he can create a solar system. Oh, you're breaking new ground there, Copernicus. And I know we said we weren't going to do that, but I can't.
No,
help
but
it.
they're hilarious.
And so I'm watching this stand-up routine on Netflix or whatever,
Right.
Prime, I don't know. And he's on
Pirate
stage, and nobody threw a camera at him, hit him in the face like it's going on now. Somebody in the balcony just stood up and went, "The big yellow one's the sun!" And instead of Brian Regan getting mad, he couldn't continue for several minutes because he was laughing so
That's
hard.
fantastic.
And it was awesome because that's a 25-year-old routine.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's that good.
It is.
Going to the optometrist, and your eyes
Is it
aren't
one or
exactly
two?
level.
One or two?
Yeah, one or two. Now.
No, his whole bits.
And they're all wholesome and clean and
they're funny.
And he tells a joke.
funny.
He says, "My son," he said, "I hear him through the kids' monitor in the room. Dad, you come upstairs. I have a joke for your show." And his son, he goes up and he goes, "What is it, son?" He goes, "Why don't dinosaurs laugh?" He goes, "I don't know, son. Why don't dinosaurs laugh?" And his son goes, "'Cause they're all dead." So he's probably my
Great choice.
favorite.
Great choice.
But you said two, right?
Yes, we did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like old school, new school, or
Okay.
dead alive.
I gotta call
old-time
Brian
versus
Regan
now.
80s, 90s, old school.
He's still current though. He's still
New
doing it.
school.
Yes.
Oh my God.
God, it's a tough choice, but I think it's Tom Segura.
Okay. Good choice.
God,
Segura?
Segura. Segura. What are you, Japanese? Segura. Smee. He just put out a new stand-up. He does one like every 2 years.
It's very funny.
And of all of his I think this is his fifth one. The least funniest was Ball Hog.
The least funniest?
How else?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would be the proper.
Least funny, least funniest, whatever.
The one that wasn't as funny as the other
Okay.
would be Ball Hog.
The other.
And
I feel like
are we on air?
I feel like we're on an onward.
UPC
Oh
just
shit!
turned
I
his
thought this
sign
was
on.
a fucking mic check.
But he's really good. I mean, he does a little blue, but it's not.
No.
It's not like.
No.
It's not like. Oh, and please, I hope we have time to do a who I hate the most.
Oh, we're gonna do that for
thank
damn
you.
sure.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of fucking hacks that I
but-
want to call out.
But the other one.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I think that's next round is favorite routines. So I'll save that. But I would say Tom Segura is new wave.
Okay.
Last 10 years, he's put out 5 stand-up routines. They've all been successful. His last stand-up tour, Sledgehammer, I've already watched it, I think 4 times.
It's very
And it's
good.
been out maybe 2 weeks. And he had worldwide 700,000 people attend his shows.
That's gross.
And
That's gross.
at $100 a pop, he made at least $40. I mean,
That's great.
I mean,
No, it's like
700,000.
it's like a big. It's like a
more
serious.
people. I mean, yeah, more people died during COVID. but-
No, but that's a serious rock band tour. I mean, that's a big deal.
yeah, and he played everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like ELO.
Or
And
or Johnny Cash. I mean, just it's impressive. That's really no.
but
I'm
yeah,
with you on cigarette.
there are some other ones. Nate Bargatze, Pete Holmes. There's a bunch. God, I love stand-up comedy. I could go on for days. But Tom Segura.
This is why we're cutting you off.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
No.
That's not why Heidi cut me off. Like too many babies.
And by the way, it also wasn't because you're not funny, because you certainly are. UPC, what do you got for your
Favorite?
for your two like maybe old
Okay,
school, maybe
all right.
new schooly?
I'm gonna start with my current
guy.
active living
okay.
favorite, which is Stuart Lee. And most of you have never heard of him.
Correct.
Because he doesn't
British.
give a shit about leaving the UK to do anything. His act is not tailored to an
Leaving
audience.
the UK is
that-
right out.
His act is not tailored to an audience. It doesn't understand the dynamics of living in the UK, the regions, accents, politics, whatever. This guy is brilliant, and he completely is influenced. Whether or not he admits it, George Carlin is a huge influence, particularly George Carlin in the 90s.
Influenced Stuart Lee.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you meant the other way around.
Yeah, he is very much a George Carlin protege, and this is just me
That's
talking.
Protege.
And this guy does what he does is he has bits that take 20 minutes.
Yep.
Not in the Norm Macdonald way. But what these bits are, they involve intentionally crowd work. Like, crowd work is part of his bit. And
He's very funny.
So wait, so
Anything-
you're saying he doesn't fill the van up with cheese sandwiches?
no. Unless he has a few in case you actually go to the van. He's got a couple of cheese sandwiches.
Would you
just
like
in
to go
case.
to my van?
Yeah, his caravan, as I say in, or his lorry.
His bonnet.
Yeah.
His Lord.
But no, this guy is so brilliant. He is very intelligent, and he does long format jokes. He's not a
Yeah.
one-liner guy.
Sure. We can't all be handy
There's
young men.
stories, and these stories are just, the end doesn't even matter. There's no punchline at the end. The whole point is you are carried along by this construct, and he makes Ricky Gervais look like a total hack.
Well,
Could I ask
And he
you-
also does shit on all of his peers
Agreed.
in the British comedy scene. Like, he actually will do a a 30-second thing. He's like, well, if so and so was doing this joke, this is how it would go. Blah blah blah. but I'm not that guy, so fuck him.
Well,
and he just keeps going, and it's so good. Oh my god.
Well,
Stuart Lee with a W, Stewart. He's also, here's the problem. He has almost nothing available on streaming, and he is religious about takedowns. If anybody's putting his stuff up on YouTube or whatever, he will prosecute that and have it taken down.
Ladies and gentlemen, go buy some Stuart Lee.
Yes.
William, what were you going to
I'm
ask?
going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you talk about the construct of his jokes, not Norm Macdonald telling a
Long-winded.
long-winded joke,
Yeah.
would you put him, and you've, look folks, we've heard about Stuart Lee multiple times from UPC.
Yeah.
But would you put him in an American that, am I right or wrong in putting him in the category of as an American comedian, Mike Birbiglia?
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually, I've never thought of that. But if you want to give, if I have to make some sort of American analog, it's Mike Birbiglia combined with a little bit of Norm Macdonald and a
little bit of George Carlin.
And a lot of George Carlin.
Okay.
Very nice.
But
Okay.
imagine if George Carlin strung out something, and the whole point. No, not that old stuff, but I'm talking about his 90s, early 2000s stuff before he died. If George Carlin strung out some sort of really satirical, biting, he does not pull punches. Like, he is very satirical.
Excellent.
This is not light-hearted comedy. This is social commentary kind of stuff. That's where the George Carlin comes in.
Gotcha. Well, what about your older school one?
Old school, it's really tough. I would say Stephen Wright, even though he's still active, I think Stephen Wright is from an earlier era when he was more active. And I actually got to see him live. He's prior to the 80s. I mean, like, Stephen Wright.
Okay, I don't know
really
exactly
awesome.
the year, but that's what I remember him in, is the 80s.
Yeah, he's not really doing much now, if at all. But, you know what? I need to give a shout out to the Catskills comedians.
Okay.
You know, we're going to talk about old school. We got Shecky Green. We got people like Mel Brooks or whatever. You know, your Catskills.
Don Rickles.
Yeah, Rick. Oh, there it is. That's my old, that's the one.
Rickles is amazing.
Rickles.
There are so many.
The king of warmth.
I got to see Rickles literally.
Mr. Warmth.
I literally got to see Rickles more than 40 years ago.
Oh my God.
And not
You're
only
that old.
Yeah, I am very old. And he is. No, it's. In fact, could someone help me up in my chair a little bit? Okay. So
we never mentioned Eddie Izzard as an influencer.
No,
Holy
but
shit,
Izzard's
you brought
great.
him up
But
a minute
just
ago
just very
with
briefly.
Stuart Lee.
But you're talking about working the crowd. So not only does Rickles have his routine, but
his routine includes.
I
crowd
saw
work. Like,
him.
he makes.
I saw him work the.
If he never had a crowd, if he had to do like a.
If he never had a script,
no live crowd, he would just have.
No, he would fall
material.
down. No, it's totally true. And the thing is, he would mess with everybody, but he would mess with them in a funny way and not make them feel bad about it. And everybody, I mean everybody, he would pick out anybody who looked different or not different from him in the crowd and go like, oh, what's your name? I said, oh, it's Bob. So you're not a Jew, huh? It's going to be okay. You might get in anyway. And that kind of thing.
I have two stories about Don Rickles. One is a personal story. My ex-girlfriend, her grandmother was a showgirl in the 50s in New York at, Copacabana or one of those nightclub, lounge kind of places. I have it on authority from her from the woman
Yes.
that she hooked up with Don Rickles.
Don was a ladies' man.
Yeah.
As unlikely as it may seem.
She had a little thing.
Well, a lot of
Right.
people, I think, yeah. There you go.
The other is there's a story about Don Rickles with he's in some place. Frank Sinatra and his little
Sure.
Rat Pack kind of guys,
Yeah.
Thanks, you owe me a Coke. There's this whole thing where Don Rickles is not actually performing. He's having dinner, and Frank Sinatra comes over because they were kind of cronies a little bit,
Sure.
and comes over and he goes, "Frank, can't you see I'm talking to a woman here? Get out of here." And like, can you imagine anybody doing
No.
that to Frank Sinatra
No.
in the late 50s, early 60s? No. But talk about,
Mr. Warmth.
yeah.
No, absolutely. No, he was
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, so my two are kind of quick. So my older school guy, and it's not that he isn't irrelevant, but his heyday was 80s, 90s. And one of my things is kind of like with music, like, if you put this thing on, I can't turn it off. Movies too, right? That movie's on, I'm not going to be able to turn this
Yeah,
off.
like
Yeah.
Airplane.
Right, absolutely. And the older school guy is Seinfeld. I can't just he's
About the show? Seinfeld,
no,
or
well,
just Seinfeld
most of the
stand-up?
show, I'm not in love with every show, but
Yeah.
I mean, I like all the shows, really, I do. And there's a couple here and there, like, whatever, but he's great in the show. But his stand-up stuff is impeccable. It's just every bit is funny.
Yeah.
There's not a bit that I don't think is funny. And then, but my current guy, and that's not a surprise, but I mean, and then the clean thing doesn't hurt at all. It doesn't. It's just like, look, you can be really funny.
Absolutely.
Just right. And then the current guy, who's not clean in the least, but is one of the current comedians saving the First Amendment, is Bill Burr.
Ah,
Bill Burr just
yay!
he has these long bits, and
Yeah.
he will talk about something with some social relevance that you don't even necessarily feel like is socially relevant as he's talking about it, and he just threads the needle.
He nails it. You just-
And it's amazing. And the thing is, if you watch him do the bit, and then you watch him in another venue do the same bit, it's amazing also how he clearly has a joke that he knows that is scripted 95%. But every time he delivers it, it just sounds like he's just telling you a story he just thought of. And it's mind-blowing how good he is at it. And Chappelle's very similar to me, but Chappelle has had his own odd kind of dealio. But the most current guy that's having like his biggest success, as far as I know, has been like the last 5 years is really Bill Burr. So that's what I got.
I live,
Mm-hmm.
almost live for stand-up comedy.
Sure.
And as Paul mentioned, I tell jokes.
A lot of jokes.
Now, I'm a cover band
You don't
comedian.
write them. You don't write them.
I
You retell jokes.
I tell some stories. I could probably put together a hour-long show about my father-in-law, and probably have a modicum of success.
Sure.
But as we're sitting here talking about this, I'm realizing that Larry's not here, Ferg is not here, Michael's not here, Dave's not here. And I know that Ferg would mention Dave Attell.
Oh, my gosh.
Because if you've ever listened to this podcast, you've heard, anywho, that was her name.
Yeah.
And that comes from a joke where Dave Attell says he was dating a Native American girl and he broke up with her and she wouldn't leave him alone. So finally he coughed into her blanket.
It's so terrible.
And the crowd just groans. And he goes, anywho. Well, that was their
Oh
name.
my gosh.
And when we hang out at the trail, our conversations last a lot longer because if you say a certain word, then you have to stop. Like if you say, "Oh, my wife," what? My wife, you know, but you know, just as we're sitting here talking, and I know we're going to talk about ones we hate, and I did think of, I said I don't know any dead comedians. Greg Giraldo,
Rest in peace.
gotta love that man. He was so funny. His roasts
Oh my gosh.
were the best.
He was outstanding.
Another dead comedian who talk about improvisation.
Jimmy.
No,
Okay.
Jonathan Winters.
Oh my gosh.
Jonathan
Well, of course, I mean,
Winters.
Dead.
What? Yeah, but I mean Jonathan Winters. One of the thing I remember most about Jonathan Winters. And by the way, I take it back. It wasn't Steve Martin, my first comedian I heard. It was Bill Cosby. But he is such a pariah now.
Correct.
We don't even mention
Yeah, it's
him.
hard to talk
No,
about.
Bill Cosby's shit is funny.
His story about the dentist and
Oh my
the
gosh.
fire.
My mouth will
and
bug.
the Cosby. But anyway, Jonathan Winters was on Johnny Carson. And
Oh. Oh, you
Now-
talking about the one with?
no, the one
Robin
with Robin
Williams?
Williams is one of the greatest
Okay.
things ever done in the history of TV.
I'm surprised they both didn't have heart attacks and die.
I think they did. But Jonathan Winters was on, and he was talking to Johnny Carson, and he tells him about this book of stories or poems that he wrote. And one was about a soldier coming back from World War I or World War II, and he had gone to what's the
USO?
USO,
Yeah.
and the guy went to the USO dance after
Yeah.
World War I
World
or
War
World War
II.
II.
Sure.
And it was
USO didn't.
10 cents and you could dance with a beautiful girl.
There
And he
you
goes,
go.
I walked in the room and I saw you there, and you know, blah blah blah. And you walked up to me and you asked me if I wanted to dance, and I said, of course I do. And we were dancing, and Johnny Carson's just getting fucking drawn into this.
Sure.
Drawn in. And this is how I tell stories, you know, this is how
Yeah.
I tell jokes. And he's getting
Yeah.
drawn in and drawn in and drawn in. And all of a sudden, Jonathan Winter goes, of course, nobody wanted to dance with a one-legged man.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, oh my God, that is so beautiful.
And Carson
Because
laughed
he
his
just-
butt off.
He's just, like, the hook is all
Oh,
the way in
it's
the
totally
cheek, and he's
sad.
like flopping out of the water.
100%.
And that's how I tell jokes. And
Yeah.
people get mad at me
No,
because
I
if
don't.
they're talking about doorbells, and I have a doorbell joke because I have a joke for everything that somehow I memorized. I won't remember your name, but I'll remember the
Right.
joke. And I will weave that into a story and then just burn you.
Oh yes,
And it
no.
just makes me feel good.
And it makes me feel good. It's fantastic.
Paul, you mentioned Bill Burr, right?
I did.
I will take your Bill Burr and I
Mm-hmm.
will raise you Jim Jeffries.
Okay.
I think Jim Jeffries is in a very similar vein as
Okay.
Bill Burr, and I think he's actually funnier.
Okay. Well, I don't, and I have a couple of reasons why.
Okay.
And then who's the guy? I always confuse. I know his name isn't Jim Jeffries. I know who Jim Jeffries is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
Aussie.
there's an English guy. He always wears a suit, and he
Oh.
always sort of
Jimmy
talks
Carr.
like this. Jimmy Carr. And I just never remember his name. I don't know why, but I think Jim Jeffries and Jimmy Carr are funny. But the thing that pisses me off about Jim Jeffries is
Yep.
sometimes he just mocks crap just to mock it, and I don't think it's that funny. He just thinks it's mockable.
Everything is mockable.
Well, everything's mockable, but it's not funny if you mock
Your
it.
religion is mockable.
No, it is,
Everything
but
is
Yeah,
mockable.
But
the
you can
second
be-
time you've brought that up,
Your
UBC.
paternity is mockable.
But you can mock
Yeah.
it in a funny way or just mock it because just about every
Oh,
marriage.
Ricky Gervais.
Look,
let me give you
now
this.
it-
Can I give you
un
this?
moment,
Ricky Gervais is the one who mocks things a bit unnecessarily. Can we
okay.
agree on that?
Yes, but
Yet
yes,
he's still funny.
yes, but he makes it funny. My point is I think marriage is a great thing. Now, half the marriages in the United States end in divorce, and you can mock marriage in a very funny way, or you can just mock it like, why in God's name do you think you could spend your life with somebody? It's ridiculous. What are you, an idiot?
Have you had a conversation with me?
Yes, but my point is you could also just make a joke about marriage that's funny as opposed to just going, you're a moron. And I prefer to go for something that has a little truth to it than just you're a moron. So that's where I'm at.
Well, that was like the girl at the trail the other night that UPC said, yeah, I went ahead and got the snip. And she was like, oh, I so wanted to have a baby with you.
For the record, if any woman wants to have a baby with me, that's a red flag.
By the way, I'm pretty sure that woman was Ricky Gervais in drag.
No,
But
that was
just...
Eddie Izzard.
Okay, sorry. I've heard it both ways.
Because, no, when he left, he went, ciao.
All right, so last...
Real quick.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
On the Bill
Because
Burr, I'm
there's a
gonna
fucking H in
weigh
it.
in on the Jim Jeffries, Bill Burr.
I think they're very similar.
I don't. I think Bill Burr is more talking about three things. One, anger. Two,
Amongst the many things are such elements as
anger. Two, overpopulation.
ruthless
Three.
devotion to the Pope.
Three is social commentary, and like he was in England and just stuck it to Michelle Obama, and he was like, this will be the last time I'm performing.
Right, I remember.
And Jim Jeffries is more about, I was dating a girl, we were dating for 3 months, I got her pregnant, now we have a kid, I have to pay for the Mother's Day present and the Father's Day present, I'm not allowed to go to strip clubs anymore, I can't do this, woe is me, everything is bad. Bill Burr is like, I just want to take that woman's head and shove it into a muffin until she suffocates. I love that. I have that anger.
The Michelle Obama bit, though, is when he mentions a plumber, he's like, you ladies are, like, mocking me because, like, I'm giving the First Lady a hard time. It's like, well, if you need a plumber and the plumber shows up,
Closer.
and
I
the
think QPC needs a plumber.
apparently,
Frogs are like up on us.
right, but the plumber shows up and says, oh yeah, no, you got a problem up here and it's coming down to the second level, whatever. And then his wife shows up and says, you know what I think? Don't you just want to say, shut the hell up? I just need a plumber. It's something of that sort. But I think Burr's good. Now hang on, un momento. So UPC has a bit of commentary here, but the last round we're going to do is...
Is it the last or we have two?
No, I think we've got one more. Is...
Hacks.
Yup. Who you like least. Yup. And I know
We don't
maybe
have
that's...
time for this
That may
shit.
be a sour
No,
note, but you gotta... Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta pick one.
One?
Sorry, you gotta pick one. Now, before we do that, I don't mind hearing what UPC had to say.
I wanted to do a round of
Female comedians.
no.
No?
Well, they're not funny.
Wow.
Sorry, Maria.
Sorry, ladies.
He's just still pissed at you because you didn't respond to him.
Oh my God, Maria
on my face.
No, it was OK Cupid, and somehow Maria Bamford and I did not ever cross paths at the same time.
Well, yeah.
But
I think this is going to be
anyway.
edited. but
Really?
We'll
And
see.
Sarah Silverman?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay, so
Sarah
he's
Silverman,
lying
Maria
to you.
Bamford, and
Fortune
anyway.
Feaster.
No.
All right. Well, we're going to cut most of this. So, what did you want to talk about
No.
instead?
I was gonna say, let's just for a brief round, comedians that aren't stand-ups but comedy people.
Okay, then hang
Because
on.
we're
We're gonna.
excluding people like Monty Python.
I hear you. Okay,
We're
so hang on.
excluding all kinds of
So
Molly
hang.
Hatchet.
Okay, so
funny people.
okay, so hang
Yeah.
on. So instead, we're going to cut this whole minute out. Instead of going with people we don't like, let's go with our favorite comics, our favorite comedic actors, right? Okay, so hang on. All right.
but not actors who are just like playing a role,
Okay, so
but
Whatever you want it to be. Doesn't
sketch
matter.
comedians, things like that. You know.
okay.
All right.
So to end, what we're gonna go with is one round of our favorite comedic actors. This could be someone who's done TV or done movies or done sketch stuff, but not so much a stand-up, but somebody or maybe even a troupe, hint hint, of people that are just really, really funny and just that we just love. So would you like to go first, UPC?
I've got two. Monty Python.
Yes.
Those guys, as far as I know, never did any kind of stand-up, but they are brilliant writers, sketch actors, everything, and film actors actually, because
Agreed.
they've made several films and they're all totally hilarious.
Agreed. And
Peter Sellers is
Oh.
another one. Like Peter Sellers, we cannot ignore him as a hilarious
agreed.
and really smartly hilarious person.
Agreed. I'm with you all
I'm
the
going to
way.
go with that.
And
Those are fantastic.
I have a clock in my office,
Mhm.
which is John Cleese,
Mm.
Ministry of Silly Walks.
Oh yes,
the
absolutely.
arm and
And
leg.
the leg, they just spin
Yeah.
around.
Oh, fantastic.
If we were ending this round on comedians that we just can't stand, I would have said Sam Kinison.
Okay.
But we're not doing that, so I just wanted to say Sam Kinison.
Jeff Dunham sucks. Fuck you, Jeff Dunham.
But since we're doing sketch comedians,
Or just comedians that aren't stand-up.
stand up, I think I would. The first one that came to mind,
Mhm.
Martin Short.
Oh, I agreed.
I mean, in the movies, in his stuff with Steve Martin, in his what's his
He was part of the Three Amigos.
the Three Amigos. No, but the interviewer, the Larry King,
Oh,
Oh.
Jiminy Glick?
Jiminy Glick.
But, Bill, what are you?
Don't fall out of your chair. I'm not taking you to the ER.
Tell me about your.
So,
I haven't heard about
I
you
haven't
in
heard
years.
anything
What
about
happened to your career?
And but I mean, even that, and on his days with Second City TV and SNL with his.
He was part of the first season of SNL.
Shit, what was he played the triangle? Come on.
Oh.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I
With the
was-
hair.
In 8th
And
grade, I
Pat
went
Sajak and
Yeah, he was
what
in love
his
with Pat
name?
Sajak.
Oh my God.
Oh dear.
Oh my
It's
God. I
most
must say, I
excellent.
must say, I must say.
You know, ladies and
And-
gentlemen, we know you're saying it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, Ed Grimley.
There you
Grimley.
go. Well done.
Ah,
In 8th
God,
grade for
he's-
Halloween, I was at Grimley.
He's a sketch comic, and not that Kids
He's a
in the
comic
Hall
actor.
weren't amazing. I
Mhm.
could have shut head. But I would go Martin Short. He's still funny, and he's old as fuck. Love you, Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marty.
No.
And shout out to his 4 sons, Morgan, Mason, Matthew, and Nadine.
Well, I know we weren't supposed to talk about it, but there's a guy that just drives me crazy. I'm trying to remember his name, but I blocked it. And I don't think he's funny at all. But instead of not funny, a guy that I just love that just makes me laugh, even some of the movies he was in that I didn't really like, was John Candy. Just
Really?
John Candy just makes me laugh. He's funny. His improv stuff is funny. His acting is funny. His
Uncle Buck.
his physical
Planes,
comedy is
Trains, and
funny.
Automobiles.
No, he's
No.
just a funny dude. And
Canadian
even
bacon.
like, and I didn't even like what's the one with Dan Aykroyd? It's the vacation movie where they go.
Oh, The Great Outdoors.
Yeah, I don't even like the movie very much, but I love watching. If someone would make me a cut of just stuff with John Candy,
Yeah.
and I just I think he's appreciated, but he's probably underappreciated. I just love John Candy.
To wrap up,
Yes, sir.
Is there a name of a comedian that you haven't mentioned tonight, and just throw out their name because they popped into your head as we were talking about the shit tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple old school guys, Henny Youngman and Jack Benny. Henny Youngman and Jack Benny were remarkable. They're just remarkable guys. And if you've never seen any of the old Jack Benny show,
The Jack
watch it.
Benny program.
Right, and
is what it's
Henny
called.
Henny Youngman was so good. As a pretty stinking old guy, Martin Scorsese puts him in Goodfellas in 1990 to do his stand-up routine at the Copa, which he would have been doing 50 years before or 40 years before. So there you go.
I would say Shane Mouse, Mauss.
Very good. Newer dude.
And Shane. Forgot his last name. He does the whole thing on Guy Fieri.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think it.
He's got long hair, ponytail.
Yeah. And there was one other one.
You mean the guy who picks the best Golden Corral in the country?
Maybe.
Yeah. He goes, just because he has a lightning bolt on his refrigerator, you can't stand him. But if Banksy had done it, you'd buy it. And and there was one more shit, and it just. Well, I mentioned Pete Holmes, but oh crap. Anyway, I'll. You know what? There are too many. Go to YouTube. Go to Netflix. Oh my God! Oh, thank you, Jesus. Tom fucking Papa.
Oh yeah, Tom Papa's fantastic.
I love that man. His
Right.
last two stand-ups have been so cathartic and funny. Thank you, Tom.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm
Okay.
done. I'm done. Damn. Oh, now the frogs shut up.
Okay, so
Fucking assholes.
Woody Allen, for damn sure.
Whatever.
Not only a great comedy writer, but a great filmmaker. Essentially, my biographer. Doug Stanhope.
Okay.
Doug Stanhope, who is probably the king of alternative comedy.
Way underrated.
Way underrated. Eddie Izzard, we mentioned a little bit,
We
but
did.
Eddie Izzard is so influential that today,
Executive transvestite.
exactly, no, because there's a fucking H in it.
Shaq.
Yeah.
Chop.
Le singe est sous la blanche. Okay.
Do you have a flag?
And if you don't, you do have a flag. If you don't know this reference, dear listener, if you
Please
don't
wa-
get any of these references,
Please watch Dress to Kill,
Fucking look it
circa,
up.
circa 2000. You will die laughing.
Yeah. And so, what did I do? Eddie Izzard, Doug
Mhm.
Stanhope.
Mhm.
We
Woody
never
Allen.
mentioned Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams.
Oh.
There's so many
You know
that
what?
we didn't
Yeah,
even.
no, well, we mentioned Robin with the.
But
with,
we didn't even
with-
talk
with-
about our favorite,
Right.
like our best stand-up experience.
Of course. No, that's
Because I
your
got
point.
to see Robin Williams in
No,
1983.
And Eddie
when
Murphy's
he was in the
a
Coke
triple
phase.
threat. I mean, Eddie Murphy's a god. There's no doubt.
Kill
So
my
yes.
landlord.
Is that what you
Kill
got?
my
Oh,
landlord.
Larry David.
C-I-L-L.
Larry David is
Kill.
not a guy who does stand-up. He has
No.
done some, but
he's a
I'm
very
telling
good
you,
writer.
He's
very.
pretty
He's
pretty
on
good.
it. He's on it. Okay. it's-
Jiminy Glick, he's amazing.
Yeah. so just a quick follow up. So the sour note is I remember the name David Cross and
Oh yeah,
and,
David Cross.
and I will trade you.
Bob Odenkirk and David Cross.
I will
Mr. Show.
I will trade yes.
Better
and,
than Monty Python.
Yet
And
not
that's a
even
strong
re-
statement, but I will
right
fucking stand
and
by
it's
it.
so strong you're wrong. So I will trade you 4 David Crosses for Shane Torres, who is
Shane Torres.
who Bill was talking about that does the Guy Fieri and the Nickelback thing. Shane Torres is hilarious.
I'll give you Julio Torres.
I have no time for David Cross. That's for sure.
Thank
Julio,
you so
Julio
much.
Torres. Look him up.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you so much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have reached our time And we are very happy that you have once again spent time with us tonight. And so our goodbyes are going to be brief because there's so few of us. The frogs are saying goodnight to you all. Yeah, I don't like the frogs either. So, William, any last words? William isn't.
I know that we've only been doing this podcast for 5 weeks and 4 days, but to me it seemed like 9 weeks and 6 days.
The aristocrats.
That's fabulous. Well, we appreciate you all spending another week with us. We hope to be talking to you soon. And thanks again. And this has been The Men Are Talking. Good night.
Good night.
Look, I'm a little drunk, okay?